to Mr. Olszewski.
Well, thank you, Chairman Smith, and thank you to our ranking members for holding this hearing. I want to thank our witnesses for joining us as well today. As a man of faith, I feel an obligation to point out the stark moral contradiction that we're facing as a nation. Pope Francis often cited the parable of the Good Samaritan from the Gospel of Luke, a story of a wounded traveler whose life is saved by the compassion and kindness of a passerby. That story captures a vision of a church whose first instinct is to bind wounds, lift the fallen, and stand with the vulnerable. It's a vision that I believe is embodied by the new Pope, Pope Leo, who served among the poor in Peru. For me, that parable is not a metaphor. It's a call to see that every child vulnerable to disease, every mother denied basic health care, every refugee without clean water, as that wounded traveler. Our mission to alleviate suffering must be rooted in compassion, in service, and a deep moral responsibility to love our neighbor just as Jesus did, no matter where they live, what language they speak, or what religion they profess. That's why I believe religious freedom cannot be separated from our lived experiences. A community that is starving, a health clinic that is shuttered, a generation of children denied quality education is a community where extremism, instability, and persecution is much more likely to take root. While we're discussing religious freedom around the world, we do so against the backdrop of an administration that has slashed the very foreign assistance that helps keep vulnerable religious minorities alive. Reports indicate that the administration has destroyed food and other essential supplies that could have been distributed instead to those in need. An independent study co-authored by UCLA warns that U.S. foreign aid cuts may lead to more than 14 million additional deaths globally by 2030, including 4.5 million children under the age of 5. These are children of God who will die of diseases we know how to prevent, mothers lost in childbirth, and families devastated by illnesses that could have been treated with basic medicine. Medicine, in some cases, that we have now destroyed. If we take the call to be Good Samaritans seriously, we must understand that our policy choices can either bind wounds, as Jesus did, or walk past them. Dr. Schneck, I want to open with you. We know that many churches, mosques, and other faith communities overseas are the ones running those clinics, caring for the sick and comforting families. I'm curious to get your thoughts on how our policies can better support those local faith efforts so that our commitment to the religious freedom we're talking about today is matched with a commitment to the physical well-being of those communities.
Thank you, Congressman. And as you know, the programs that you're talking about have largely been defunded currently, and as a result, organizations that relied on those funds to provide not just humanitarian assistance, but assistance to develop interfaith relations, assistance to develop civil society. Those things, those cuts, I think, are potentially devastating for the protection of religious freedom around the world. And I think in my own faith, as a Roman Catholic, I very supportive of an organization called Catholic Relief Services, which provided humanitarian assistance around the world, not just to Roman Catholics, not just to Christians, but to people of all faith. A good number of their programs have been significantly underfunded now because of the cuts that the federal government has made in cooperation with Catholic Relief Services. So I share your concerns that those cuts are, in fact, a threat to religious freedom around the world, and I very much hope that this Congress will work to restore some of that funding.
I appreciate that. I know that my time is winding down, but I guess I'll just close by reinforcing, for me, I find myself wondering how, for me as a follower of Jesus, as other religions with similar beliefs, how are we letting that example and letting those faith examples be a guide for how we approach caring for vulnerable people beyond our borders? And I think that this conversation is important, but it's also not happening in a vacuum, and we have to sort of look at the whole person if we want to be able to address this critical issue. And I thank you all for your testimony and for your work in this space, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.